Crazy how in that video last night I walked up and down Norfolk Avenue, and I walked by that place where they always sink. It's like a ramp on the sidewalk thing, and they'll sink at like both ends of it. It's like across the street from 411, kind of like right next to it. And I walked by that place 3 times on that video, and they sinked at it all 3 times, and there's no other cars anywhere. And like there's just cars at synced places the entire video, except maybe like a couple of cars, that look questionable, but all the rest of them are at specific places, and I'll walk up and down the same street, and they'll be at the same place when I walk by it 3 times on the same video, 3 times in a row. There's just no cars anywhere, and then when I walk by that place, there's a car right there, and it's right at it all 3 times. And it's right there all 3 times. It's perfectly right there all 3 times. But yet, if you question these people and you're like, why are you synced? They're like, I'm not synced. I'm not a stalker. I think they're stalkers. That's just my theory. But they are synced though. That's not a theory. That's my point. Is that's not a theory. Is that they are synced. I don't think it's a theory that they're stalkers too. I think they are stalkers, but that's just my opinion though, but like clearly they are synced though. Yes. They are. So it's just crazy how they are, but then they're just like all of them. They're just like, I'm not synced. It's all in your head. It's a coincidence, but it's not in my head. It's on video 3 times in a row when I walk by the same place. So how is it a coincidence when it's 3 times in a row and I walk by the same place in the middle of the night and there's no cars anywhere and there's cars right there at that place and other places up the street every time I walk by? And I mean, you know what I mean? Like at the specific places, like at Harbor Bar. But at that one place though, they drove by it 3 times in a row when I walked up and down the street last night. But like if I walk up and down Norfolk Avenue, they're either gonna synchronize at the Harbor Bar corners and the door of Harbor Bar, 411 corners, the door of 411, the corners of Fenders, the corners of Healthwork, or the same one. The one thing over by Healthworks with the corners, the other doors where they sync at all the time, Ravenwood corners, the crosswalks, the intersections, the center of the street, the corners of Bank, etc., etc. They're gonna drive by all these places. If I walk up and down Norfolk Avenue late at night, there's gonna be no cars on the street, and then they're gonna drive by these places. Like every time. And like if I just walk up and down the street, it'll happen every time. And it always is happening every time. So how is it not synced if it's happening every time? Can anyone answer that question? Any of the people that say that it's not synced? How is it not? Because it is. So if it is, how is it not? Because it is though. Like it can't not be when it is, right? Like, is this a quarter? Or is this a pineapple? Do you see a quarter or do you see a pineapple right now? Is this a fish? No, it's a quarter. And if I hear a quarter, if I see a quarter on the ground, if I walk by a place every day and there's things happening at it every day, isn't it happening at it every day? Isn't it things happening at a place every day? If it's happening every day, and if it's happening every time that I walk up and down the street, and if it's happening late at night when there's no cars anywhere except cars at those places, Spider-Man sense. I don't know what you mean. This is crazy because like everyone around me is like, "You're crazy. You're a schizo." Nobody's gang stalking you. You're a schizo. Nobody's synced. But they're all synced, and they're all synced at specific places, and all the time too. And not just sometimes. And then like the same people are always synced all the time. Like I'll see the same person every time I see them. They're synced. They're doing sync things every time. Every time. If every time I see you, you look synced, are you synced? If it's every time that I see you, how could it possibly not be synced if it's every time that I see you? You ever feel like a cop is gonna appear and he does? Not really. When I walk by the police station, yeah. I think I see 2 blue cars synced. Yep. And then a third blue car, and then a white truck with them, and then another white truck with them. But yeah, like that's not a coincidence. I just walk up to my window and there's 2 blue cars, and then they sync with another blue car and 2 white trucks. Like it's not a coincidence. There's no way that it's always a coincidence. It's not possible to always be a coincidence. Sometimes it could be a coincidence. You know, like occasionally, maybe 2 cars will drive by me simultaneously, coincidentally, occasionally. But if it's happening all day, every day. And if it's happening at the Harbor Bar when I walk by it every time, then how is it not happening when it is every time? Every time. Like if I walk by the Harbor Bar during the day, something's gonna happen at the Harbor Bar every time, probably. If I walk by if I walk up and down Norfolk Avenue, just all day, things are gonna happen at the Harbor Bar every time, probably. At the corners of it and at the door of it. Like I could probably go prove that right now. I could probably go outside right now and record it. And then maybe troll me a little bit because I'm trying to, because I'll be like, watch, every time I walk by the Harbor Bar, something's gonna happen, and then they're not gonna do it, like, one time when I walk by it or something. Just be like, see, you're wrong, you're schizo. But like, if I just walk up and down Norfolk Avenue, they're gonna sink into all those places, like, every time. Or at those specific places, they're gonna sink every time I walk up and down the street. They're gonna sink at many different places, at specific places where they always sink. Every time, every day. Or any street, not just Norfolk Avenue, any street. I'm just using that as an example because, like, I've walked up and down that street a million times and recorded all the places where they drive by. But it's any street, though. They sink up at specific places up the street. And they do it every time I walk up the same street. They'll do it if I walk up and down the same street. Like if I walk further up Norfolk Avenue, they're gonna sink at the corners of the Freemason building, in the door of the Freemason building, and the curb of the ATM next to the Freemason building. And they're gonna sink at the ATM of Wells Fargo, and they're gonna sink at the like they sink at these places, and it sinked. It's just like crazy because it is synced, and then they're like, it's not synced. And it's just like a million people around me being like, it's not synced. You're a schizo. Because they're all synced, and they gotta say that it's not synced because they're the synced ones, and they say it that it's not synced, but it is though. And it is. Like every time I walk up to that one roundabout, pretty much every time I walk up to that roundabout that's over by like Johnson Park or whatever, like over by the laundromat, every time I walk by that roundabout, like pretty much every time I walk up to that roundabout, there's a car meeting me right at it, or multiple cars meeting me at it. And then there's always just black and silver cars driving by me simultaneous, and there's always red and blue cars driving by me simultaneous. And then there was a red car meeting me at an intersection yesterday with a blue shirt. And then I got to the other side of the intersection, and there was a blue garbage truck. There's a red car and then a blue garbage truck at the other side, and they were right there at each side. And she had a blue shirt in the red car. And there'll be 5 tan cars pulling up all at the same time to each other, and it'll just be synced. It's just synced. It's very synced. And people just want to be like, it's not synced. And like, whatever, it's your opinion, man, but like, it is synced though. Like, opinions aren't necessarily facts. Like, what is on the camera is what's factually there, and it's synced. So I don't really care what your opinion about it is, because it doesn't matter, because it's on camera and you can see that it's synced, objectively synced. It's not subjectively, it is objectively synced. It is very clearly synced, objectively. The UPS is driving by me objectively synced right now. There's no question about it in my mind that he's synced, because I can see the syncs. He's synced with a cop. And then there's this engine sound, I think. And then he's synced with a tail lift. The UPS synced with a cop, and then the UPS synced with a tail lift. And then he synced with another car, I think. He drove out around the corner. And the UPS is always synced every time I see one, every single time I see one. And the cops are synced every single time I see one. And the tail lifts are synced every single time I see one. Every single time I see one, they're meeting me at the harbor bar or whatever. Every single time I see one, they're meeting me at a harbor bar or a crosswalk, or they're parking next to me, or they're doing a sync. Or they're syncing with another car. Or they're syncing with a guy walking, or they're syncing with a dog walker, or they're syncing with a dog walking out by itself. Or they're syncing with a cat, or they're syncing with a bird, or they're syncing with a baby crying, or they're syncing with a guy coughing, or they're syncing with a plane flying over, or whatever. A plane is flying over in a crosswalk. It is synced. Like, what else do I gotta do to explain, to prove that it's synced? What do I gotta do to prove that it's synced? Because I've already proven it a billion times that it's synced. So what else do I gotta do to prove it that it's synced? Because it is. Like, when I walked by that place last night 3 times in a row, it was synced. Like, every time I see a FedEx, it's synced. Every time I see a bus of any kind, it's synced. Anytime I see a school bus, it's synced. Anytime I see the student driver car, it's synced. Anytime I see the pier truck, it's synced. Anytime I see the certain cars, they're synced. Anytime I see certain people, they're synced. Anytime I see them, they're synced. Every time I see them, they're synced. Every time I see them, they're synced. Like, that's just it. It's just every time I see them, they're synced. That's it. That's just, it's simple as that. Every time I see them, they're synced. Like, every time I see you, you're synced. Every time I see you, dude, you're synced. So, what else can I say? Like, every time there's sirens on my videos, they're synced. Every time you hear a siren start, it's synced. Every time you hear a car honk, it's synced. Maybe not every car horn, like there's been a couple of car horns that are questionable. But like every time, 99.999% of the time, synced. Car doors, synced. Dogs barking. That dog was barking synced a bunch of times on the video last night. Like when I crossed the street, like when I was over by the Freemason building, and I walk up on the sidewalk and the dog barks synced, and he was barking like not at the center line of the street, but like the center of the lane line, like the one that divides the two lanes. Like it's like a 4-lane street, and it's like the other line, it's like the center line, but not the center of the street line. You know what I mean? I think the dog started barking synced there, but then it was barking synced when I walked up on the sidewalk, and then it was barking synced at the curb, and then it was barking synced at the other curb, and then it was barking synced at the corner of Freemason building, and then it stopped barking after that. Like it barked like 2 more times, like just as I'm walking by the Freemason building, and then it stopped barking after that. And then there was the engine sound right at the other corner of Freemason building that you couldn't hear on the camera though, but and then there was a car pulling up meeting me at the intersection right after that, and then there was a guy getting in his truck right when I got across the street as another car drove by me right at the other side of the street. There's no other cars on the street except these cars that are driving by me synced. And then he's getting in the truck synced in the parking lot, and then he's pulling off next to me synced. And how is it not synced? Like, if it's synced like that, how is it not synced? Like, it's very synced. So how is it not? Because it is, like, it is. The dog barked at all those places. He didn't bark at any other places. He just barked at those places, at the curb, at the other curb, at the corner of the Freemason building, and when I stepped up on the sidewalk, and at the line of the street. And those were the only places that the dog barked. And then he stopped barking. And then the car pulled up right when I walked up. And then it pulled up, the other car pulled up right when I got across, right as the other guy was getting in the truck. And then he took off in the truck right next to me. And I think he got in his truck at the corner of the building or whatever. And it was all synced. So how is it not what it is? I see one light and I hear an engine sound at the same time. And then I hear these bang sounds. And then I see a red car followed by a blue car, and I think they're synced, and I think my refrigerator's synced. Or I know it's synced, but yeah. I see the syncs and I hear the engine sounds, and they're synced. And if I wanted to, I could turn my camera around and I could prove it that they're synced. I could show you that they are synced. Like, I could just stand and record all day. If I just stand near an outlet with my phone plugged in, I could just stand and record all day. And it would be synced all day. And if I walk up and down the same street, it's synced all day at all the same specific places.